painting was treated as a joke, and it was mocked because it was a black man dressed as a gentleman with books in the background trying to pretend he was scholarly. Well, an historian this year decided to do an x-ray on this portrait painting, and he scanned the titles of the books in the background as well as that book that he has his hand on. Come to find out, he's a math genius and scholar who computed and witnessed Halley's Comet flying over Jamaica in 1759. He also opened schools in Jamaica and freed slaves in Jamaica, and he also was in rooms with Sir Isaac Newton. And he commissioned this painting himself because he was disrespected and dismissed in the science community. Let's get started and learn something new. His name was Francis Williams, and he was a wealthy Jamaican polymath who was born into slavery but freed as a child. And the only reason that we have access to this painting is because a furniture curator decided to purchase it in 1928 because it depicted fine mahogany furniture. And all of this was uncovered by a Princeton historian, Professor Farah Dabuwala, who indicates that the painting is the earliest example in Western art of a named black person celebrating their status as an intellectual. And while white scholars and scientists were being recognized and being named after comets, Francis Williams was proposed as a fellow. He didn't ask, proposed as a fellow of the Royal Society at a meeting Isaac Newton and Halley, who the Halley Comet is named after, attended in 1716, but was rejected by a small committee on the account of his complexion. And let's get to the part of the X-ray and how this professor was able to read the titles in the background. Initially, they thought this painting was done closer to the early 1800s, but the professor realized that a scan of the painting revealed new titles in the bookcase. He was able to date the painting to around the time of the comet. He also discovered the significance of the page number carefully inscribed on the book Williams is reading, the book that he has his hand on. That's how detailed this painting was. It is the page in the third edition of Newton's Principia that discusses how to calculate the trajectory of a comet by reference to the constellations around it. But it doesn't even stop there. He even did an x-ray of the window scene depicted in this painting, and it's so accurate. The background of the painting showed lines intersecting what appears to be a luminous white comet streaking through the sky at dusk and connecting with stunning accuracy to constellations of stars. These stars would have been visible in that position in the firmament when Halley's Comet was in the sky over Jamaica in 1759. This was a big deal in 1759 because Halley predicted that the comet would come around again, and it did, and everybody was anticipating this. So the comet's reappearance was immensely important to all educated, intellectual people around the Western world at this time. Everyone is waiting for Halley's Comet because it will prove that Newtonian science, modern science works, that everything is affected by gravity, that we have figured out the universal principle at the heart of the universe. But it also has deeply personal resonance for Francis Williams because probably no one else outside Europe was still alive who had met and conversed with Halley and Newton. They've all died. He even included his instruments for mathematical drawings and calculations. Like in 1759, about the time that this painting was done, Francis Williams inherited an estate from his formerly enslaved African father that included plantations and enslaved black people. He decided to set up a school for the young, free the black people, and he died childless in 1762. Nothing he wrote about his intellectual endeavors has ever been found. How we got to the part where this painting was treated as a mockery, especially with all the information out there about Francis Williams, it ended up in the hands of a white plantation owner and historian, Edward Long, along with a Scottish philosopher, David Hume, who had mocked Williams' intellect in print, lending credence to the idea that the portrait must have been satirical. Professor Farah Dabuwala is determined to tell Francis Williams' story. Just a couple of weeks ago, he did a lecture on his findings, as well as publishing them in the London Review of Books. He said, "I think this painting is making a really powerful statement. It's saying, I, Francis Williams, free black gentleman and scholar, witnessed the most important event in the history of science in our lifetimes, the return of Halley's Comet, and I calculated its trajectory according to the rules of the third edition of Isaac Newton's Principia." I hope you learned something new.